Thank you, friends. Thank you for being here tonight, for joining us in this conversation, and for your care and concern about our community. So I'm Christy Duncan Tesmer, Chestnut Hill Meeting, and I serve as General Secretary for PYM. And on the call, there are several other staff people as well. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Zachary, would you start?
Hi, I'm Zachary Dutton. I serve our yearly meeting as Associate Secretary for Program and Religious Life Fellow.
And then TJ and then Olivia.
Hi, everyone. TJ Jurian. I'm the Events and Resources Coordinator.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Olivia Brankin, and I'm a member of Wrightstown Meeting, and I serve our yearly meeting as the Community Engagement Coordinator.
So Zachary is facilitating part of tonight to go through what kinds of changes we're moving towards, and TJ and Olivia are community engagement staff who are helping support making this meeting go. There are a couple of other staff people who are on the call, and I'll just ask you to also introduce yourselves, Linnell and Lucas, just so people know who the staff are who are among us.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linnell McCurry. I'm a member of Lansdowne Friends Meeting, and I'm Associate Secretary for Business and Finance.
Hey friends, I'm Lucas. I'm the Grants Associate. I'm a member of Bethesda Friends Meeting, although I live in Philly.
And oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And Oscar, who does HR and inclusion and is also an important part of how we're having the conversations about staffing. So Oscar, please, I'm so sorry.
That's right. Thanks, folks. I'm Oscar Castro, a member of Central Philadelphia Monthly Meeting and serving, as Christy said, as the Director of HR and Inclusion.
So this is what our hour looks like. I'm just going to give a little bit of introduction about staffing generally and directions. And then Zachary will move through a PowerPoint that talks specifically about the transitions and changes that we're talking about. And then we'll have time for some questions. So let me rearrange my screens slightly. There we go. So one of my jobs is to identify the needs for staffing to help take care of our and support our yearly meeting community so that we can meet all of our needs. And this is a briefing to give you a heads up about some of the staffing changes that are coming and the directions that we're going. Zachary supervises this body of work, and so he'll go into detail about the changes. And we're doing this tonight to provide some transparency about the changes that are happening, and so you know what we're looking at and why we're doing that, and also so that we can hear thoughts and questions and concerns and hoorays and what about that kind of conversation is really important to have as large a view as we can about what we're doing. It helps to both make sure that people who have questions about it can have those answered, and so that as staff who are responsible for making decisions about staffing have as much perspective as we possibly can. So to this point, we've talked with over a few months, we've talked with current staff about what our needs are and how to meet them, and here, like starting with our basic thoughts about what about this, and got feedback from them, including the people who are leaving positions. We met with the Young Adult Friends leadership several times, which affected how we were thinking about this. Talked with the Personnel Committee, with Admin Council and Quaker Life Council. I presented this in my report at sessions. We talked about it more with staff and with Young Adult Friends leadership. Again, we're talking with you tonight, and Personnel Committee next week, and staff again tomorrow. So all of that has been to help give feedback and perspective into the process. And here's just a little bit of sort of philosophy, staffing philosophy. So we have staff to manage day-to-day operations and to support things that require managing relationships on an ongoing basis, things that require specific expertise, and to provide continuity to the work that we're doing as a community. And also staff support all the governance and volunteer functions. And we have regularly scheduled staff who are scheduled to work on a weekly basis. They work together with other staff. They're members of teams, one or more teams, and their work is all about meeting responsibilities that are ongoing and need attention on a daily, weekly kind of basis. And these staff attend weekly, monthly staff meetings and team meetings. And most of those staff are full-time, although there are a few part-time, either because that's what the work requires or what the budget requires. And then we also have flexibly scheduled part-time staff. And these are to meet needs that kind of ebb and flow. That might be because the need ebbs and flows. Like there's meetings who need something now, and there's granting projects that need support at this other time. Or there might be programs and events that only happen occasionally, like the youth programs. So that flexible part-time staff they're welcome to come to all the regularly scheduled staff meetings. They receive emails that are sent out to all staff. But they are not required to go to any of those meetings, and they're not like in the office. I say office now because none of us are in the office on a regular basis. But they're there to meet needs and programs as they're needed. And overall, we're just always aiming for having a staff structure that provides flexibility and responsiveness, so that as needs change, as things happen in the world, as things happen in the community, we have a steady staffing who can be responsive in a flexible way to what's needed in the community. So that's a kind of overall picture there. And I'm just checking the chat. Okay. So Zachary, let me turn it over to you to, oh, no, wait, sorry. I wanted to say one more thing. So a lot of what Zachary will be talking about in his first slide says about needing to meet the needs of diversity and belonging and inclusion in our community, and that's a lens that we're doing all of this work through. And I just wanted to, as part of my introductory laying it out on the table before we get specifics, wanted to say that that we are our strategic directions and the ministry that we're engaging in the yearly meeting is really looking towards how are we a community that is responsive to needs in the world, and that can be setting ourselves up to be welcoming all the people who are wanting to live their lives in deep relationship with God and having a community to support them in doing that, and to live out our testimonies with the support of one another. And thinking about doing that, and how do we set ourselves up so that we can be responsive and honest to how those callings that we have recognized, and move into the future in a way that we will survive and grow and be strong. And part of what that means is being able to be inclusive, belonging community. And part of what it means is listening to and being responsive to and inclusive of the people who are younger, who are the current, who bring an enormous amount of current energy and commitment and vision and faith, but also our future. And so with those awarenesses and values, those things have influenced how we're thinking about moving forward. So Zachary, now you're up.
Hey everyone, am I audible? Okay. TJ is going to help me by doing the screen share shebang. So picking up from where Chrissy left off, it was a perfect segue. I think that we really have a commitment moving forward with the shifts that I'll be explaining today, and with all of our staffing moving forward to operate through the lens of equity, inclusion, and belonging. And there's a particular pattern we've realized, which is that our young adult friends community is often at the forefront of change, and it makes a lot of sense to having recognized that pattern to follow it, because then experimentation, growth, and necessary change can be noted and integrated in terms of how we support young adults, and then shared out to the rest of the community. And we can, through that process, develop best practices and provide guidance to meetings and other kinds of local Quaker community and to the larger PYM community when it is asked for or seems appropriate. Okay, next slide. So this is a series of planned redistribution of functions, and that might sound like bureaucratic hoo-ha, but I want to just raise that this, among other things, is important to emphasize, because we're really not eliminating anything that we offer as a yearly meeting, but shifting how the functions are carried out. So there's a redistribution of functions, or a rearrangement of with what staff and at what levels different things happen. Next. So why that distribution? Like why fix what ain't broke? We want to live more fully into our faith traditions, emphasis on community, to broaden engagement, deepen relationship that requires creating as many different kinds of points of entry as we can at all sorts of levels, so that local Quaker community can really be centered in our work. And we've talked about this, and we'll continue talking about how we have a central commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism, and that really needs to be expressed in how we do our staffing. And we want to make sure that we're able to do this for the long haul, that 50 years from now, we can give the same sorts of, we can do the same sorts of things that we're doing now, and that requires ensuring a sustainable staffing budget. So before we go any further, it really is important to acknowledge how much we love and will miss George and Meg. Meg Rose already exited her role as Young Adult Engagement Coordinator this last July of 2021, and George will be retiring at the end of the year. And they both have been just incredibly spiritually deep holders of important relationships and ministry in our community, and we will miss them deeply. And we want to create space now, and we'll have other opportunities to really honor them as we move forward. So some principles that Christy also named that are worth reiterating. We want to make sure that we have consistency, that we're able to, that people know who to talk to and when and about what. And we need to balance that with a sense of being able to respond flexibly and efficiently to needs as they arise. We center equity, inclusion, and belonging. We want to make sure granting groups get the support that they need, and that there's a primary contact, someone that meetings know when there's a concern in areas of pastoral care and mental health, that they know who to contact about that. And just to be aware, some of the changes do involve the Friends Counseling Service. So we, in terms of transparency and commitment, we want to involve the committee that's responsible for the Friends Counseling Service in this work. So here's the current distribution of functions with two different positions. So the first is Care and Aging Coordinator. That's George's role. So currently, George facilitates aging casework. There's about a caseload of about 50 cases that George deals with throughout the year, works closely with the grant making team to ensure that issues that arise around aging in meetings are supported, and that if there's a need that requires a grant, then George connects those needs to the appropriate applications. George also works with the Friends Counseling Service to ensure that if mental health consultations need to take place, sometimes there are acute mental wellness issues that will arise in Quaker meetings and need more of a professional evaluation. There's also conflict intervention. So local communities experience, just as with any community, conflict from time to time, and that does sometimes overlap with mental health and also with pastoral care consultation. And then we do have a Resource Friends program that is growing, and a particular practice area that George cares for is the ministry and care practice area. And we have a lot of interest in growing that because it's a community of practice that involves friends from across our yearly meeting who are deeply experienced in pastoral care and can provide pastoral care consultation as well. Also, George is a primary point of contact. So I mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that there's a primary point of contact for meetings and individuals with concerns, and we're carrying that. So the Young Adult Engagement Coordinator was set up to help connect young adults into the broader yearly meeting community, provide pastoral care, manage events associated with retreats and other fellowship opportunities, manage YAF communications, provide guidance to local meetings on welcoming YAFs. And we've been dealing with what I call the 3 prongs of engagement. the 3 different ways to engage young adults beyond the retreat model, which I'll just mention quickly. We've had success in providing modest stipends and paying young adults to do work like with the YAF Consultants project that just finished, that Lucas could tell you more about. Touch points, making sure that we send care packages, postcards, or even just emails and phone calls to let young adults know that we're here when they're ready to participate, and networking opportunities. So the retreats are a networking opportunity, and there's also other ways we can bring young adults together across career interests or identity. Like for the first time ever this fall, there will be a YAF BIPOC retreat, which we're really excited about. So those are the current functions and how they're distributed across these 2 positions, the care and aging coordinator and the young adult engagement coordinator. So this is the new distribution. So the idea is that we'll hire a full-time inclusion and belonging coordinator who is going to continue spending the same number of days a week focused on young adult organizing as the young adult engagement coordinator did. So want to just offer reassurance right off the bat that there's not a reduction in staffing being devoted to YAFs. And some of the same functions will be covered by this coordinator. And then we are the remaining 2-ish days of this coordinator's work will be spent on aspects of the functions that the care and aging coordinator had, namely making sure that the Resource Friends program is vital and growing, providing and coordinating pastoral care consultations and conflict interventions. And what's really cool about this model is that because it brings together these 2 different pieces, the guidance on welcoming to monthly meetings is broader than just welcoming young adults. It now will include the experimentation that I talked about at the beginning that follows a pattern of YAFs kind of being at the forefront of our change. So we can also start to provide guidance around including other folks who are underrepresented in our communities, like BIPOC friends, queer friends, friends with different abilities. And we will also be, Chrissy mentioned the flexible and part-time staff functions. So we'll be supplementing some of the organizing to support YAFs, acknowledging that this coordinator will need support in some ways with event management and communications. So we'll likely have a part-time person supporting the coordinator to do those things. We also will have deeply experienced caseworkers who we will hire, and their responsibilities will pick up on the responsibilities that George has played to this point, which will be either to be available for mental wellness consultations or to provide that consistent relationship with the 50 or so caseload of friends who are aging and need support, and to be connected with the appropriate resources, usually our grant making, to receive that support. And that's also where we want to make sure that especially the caseworkers who deal in aging are available to attend the appropriate granting group meetings so that they can do the work of providing context in the same way that George has. We also recognize that to grow the ministry and care practice area in the Resource Friends program, it would be useful to have some part-time support to help coordinate that. And there will be some conflict intervention that people on staff can respond to, and there might be more complex conflicts that require us to work with experts outside of staff to support. And this is also important because with a of part-time staff, that is adding more people. I'm really excited about it because it means that the inclusion and belonging coordinator will be on a team with other part-time staff who together I think will be so innovative, because this is the first time that we're bringing together equity consciousness with pastoral care and supporting young adults and others on the margins. And so I just imagine so much synergy coming out of that. But there does need to be still a primary point of contact for concerns. And that primary point of contact will shift to the Associate Secretary for Program and Religious Life, who at least for the time being foreseeable future, will be responsible for holding the big picture, noticing patterns of needs and workflows, and being sure that if there's a particular need of individuals or meetings, that they are held in the right place and that there's efficiency, transparency, and responsiveness. So if you have questions, feel free to email Christy Oscar, our Director of Human Resources and Inclusion, or myself, and we'd be happy to go in depth on any of these points, respond to concerns, receive feedback.
Zachary, thank you for taking us through all of that. I want to just add one thing that we talked about recently, which is that as changes are happening, it would be really helpful to be checking in about them to see how it's going, to see how friends who you all who are relying on support and services, how it's working. And so that's something that we will build in within 6 months of new things being implemented. We'll check in about it and have another meeting and see how things are going and what tweaks might be needed and to hear feedback on that. So in the spirit of we're all in this community looking for how we function together and meet our needs together and are breathing in alignment with spirit together, what questions and thoughts and reflections are there among us? Wow, thank you, friends. This is really important, and I'm really grateful for this conversation and that you have come to share these things. I'm going to give just the sort of headlines back of what I've heard. One is just at the top of the list over and over again, just name that the amount of honor and respect for George and the work that he himself has done, and that there's no way that we can talk about this work without also having to name over and over again how important George has been in the life of our community and the time that he's worked for us in the last 10 plus years. There is, like, I could put, what are they called? The part of speech that says very, very, very in front of every one of these to reinforce each of these, because with the amount of energy that you have for each of these. So very, very, very much need for continuity and relationship and steady presence that comes from a dedicated staff position. There's an essential need for expertise in the areas of social work and aging and conflict resolution, both for the person who is providing that support for our yearly meeting and for the person who is supervising that staff. That real questioning about whether there are enough hours here to cover all of the needs. Not even questioning clarity that there just isn't. That part-time people working in a part-time capacity are less reliable, less committed, don't tend to be around as long. And so that turnover would affect us. There's a really important need for people who are doing this work, not just to know the field of social work and to have the expertise there, but also to know our community well and to know the people in it. And the continuity and consistency and expertise that's also, I said, aging and social work and conflict resolution, and also granting is the other area. And that we haven't done enough listening to the people who would be affected by this, that we, this time around, we did a good job of that with the young adult friends community, but not with the older friends community. So those are the sort of headlines that I'm taking away. Another just aspect that isn't what you've said, but that I hear in the way that people are responding is that the way that we've presented this has shared a lot about this new position, but there's really not enough clarity about how the rest of it works, how the social work works, how is it held together, who's supervising it, how is it consistent, that whole picture of how does it work is unclear, and that clarity is really important for you to be able to have any confidence in what we're doing, and is important in making it work. I've also heard a real support for the importance of nurturing the community and the leadership capacity of our young adult friends, and how that's really important for that community and for our yearly meeting. I would add in the world, my own self. And similarly for the diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging kind of work that we need to do, an affirmation that is important, and gratitude for paying attention to how can we be doing that, and that the direction that we're going in that is interesting, and yeah. So those are the takeaways that I have to go back and look at the drawing board and work with staff on and be in relationship and communication about. Zachary, let me turn to you and see if there's stuff you would like to bring into this.
I echo my gratitude for folks bringing their candor, and appreciate the feedback that people have had. Yeah, I want to stay in relationship, and I also want to emphasize that that in the principles that we've shared, consistency is a big one, and I think that that's going to continue to be at the center, is how we can offer and support community in ways that are consistent and ensure that folks are cared for in the ways that they need to be.
Okay. Well, thank you, friends. I feel like we are with the rubbing together and the lifting up of things. We're doing some real community work, and I'm glad to be doing that with you. Thank you. I'm going to wrap us up now and want to encourage you very much to, if you want to have any further conversation, if you think I didn't hear something, if you want to reinforce anything, if something occurs to you later, any of that or anything else, feel free to be in touch with Zachary or Oscar or me. So can we just take some like real deep breaths of connection with one another and spirit and community, and settle into stillness and awareness together to close this meeting.